to the second and final part of Flashback February 2019. And I have to admit, today's anime I surprisingly didn't know that much about. Granted, I had heard about it through friends, but the only thing I knew about it at that point was the name. And since this year's Flashback February has had an Osamu Tezuka theme, it seems only fitting that, given that this is also one of his most beloved animes next to Astro Boy, that it be covered. And so, with that being said, I'm just going to jump right in and get started with today's review on Kimba the White Lion. Please tell me that I wasn't the only one who heard that? Let's keep going with the review here. Yeah, just cut away to the slideshow. Yeah. Very similar to Astro Boy, the series starts off with an origin story. Deep in the jungles of Africa, there once lived a mighty white lion named Caesar, who defended the inhabitants of the jungle from dangerous threats and strived for peace. Sometimes he would even go so far with his beliefs that he actually went to human villages, stole the farm animals, only to set them free later on. The humans eventually get tired of this and decide to kill Caesar by kidnapping his pregnant mate to lure him out. This unfortunately works as Caesar is killed and also sadly his mate is later sold off. She then gives birth to Kimba while on a cargo ship. But when young Kimba reaches the ripe age of 2 months, his mother tells him of his father and the jungle and then proceeds to tell him to escape the ship and return home to claim his rightful place as the ruler of the jungle. Yes, dear viewers, you heard right. Even though I'm well aware that he is just a lion cub, he's tasked with escaping a cargo ship that's halfway across the ocean to return to the jungle to reclaim his birthright. Yeah, that's pretty far-fetched, folks. He escapes the ship just in time for a storm to blow right on in and sink the ship. And on top of that, he miraculously swims halfway across the ocean back to Africa. He soon comes back to the jungle to fight off enemies and protect the inhabitants of the jungle, just as his father did, as well as try to get along with the humans who live outside the jungle. And once again, in similar action to Astro Boy, the series turns episodic, though Kimba differs here by being at a decent 52 episode count. But as you'll find out in a minute, this classic show starts to become a very different beast. And that's every pun intended. So far, I've sounded pretty cheery about this anime. But that's just because it gets into some pretty nonsensical territory here. Yep, I think you guys know exactly where this review is going. Overall, I give Kimba the White Lion a 70. Now, to be fair, there were actually some good moments in here that were worth praising. But let's face it, that's the only reason why I didn't give this show a lower ranking. Getting straight to the point here with the many problems I had with this show, it was just so laughable. And not in a good way. I felt like the scenarios in some moments of the show were complete and utter nonsense. Now, I know this show is meant for little kids, but seriously, when you have a 2-month-old lion cub manage to swim across the span of an ocean by sheer will alone, it's not too far-fetched to say the show paints Kimba off as this god. And the idea of that is both frustrating and kind of hilarious. But it doesn't stop there. You have one episode where the animals actually talk to the humans, and even one where they all go to freaking Paris. Yeah, you heard me. They go to Paris. Good Lord, the more I think about it, this kind of logic is almost insulting to little kids. Now granted, I'm someone who runs off of logic, but still, for a kid's show, some of the scenarios presented here are just so far out there that you can't take them seriously. Another problem that I had with this show was specifically with Kimba. Now, before you say anything, Kimba was not a bad character. He's not annoying or dislikable by any means. But the problem is that Kimba comes off as being this flawless protagonist. I'd almost equated to him being this all-holy messiah who can do no wrong. Within the realm of the series he reigns and is just destined to wield tremendous power. Again, going back to him swimming across the ocean at 2 months old. And I find this problematic because it doesn't make him all that interesting or really someone you want to root for in the series. You can tell watching the series he's always going to come out on top, so why bother feeling anything for him if you know that things will always go in his favor? Yeah, this show does a pretty good job of painting Kimba as this almighty cat god. But this doesn't explain why Kimba and other characters seem to randomly forget that there were actual threats in the jungle besides butthole humans. Yeah, no joke. There's an episode where everyone seems to forget that there was a legit villain in this series. His name is Claw, and he has 2 unnamed hyena underlings and a Black Panther henchman named Cassius. And I know what you're thinking. No, he is not from Wakanda. Believe it or not, we get to see him very early in the series, more specifically in the 2nd episode. Here, Kimba had just arrived in the jungle to find it being terrorized by the hyenas and Claw being the self-proclaimed ruler. By the end of the episode, he and Kimba fight with Kimba, of course, winning and throwing Claw out of the jungle. So with that brief synopsis, how is it that no one seems to remember him when he comes back? Yeah, in the 7th episode, he returns, but everyone acts like he showed up out of nowhere. Even Kimba acts like he doesn't remember. Shoot, with all the miracles Jesus performed, he still remembered he was going to be crucified. Did everyone just magically get amnesia for 5 episodes or what? Well, I doubt that because there's a scene in the same episode where Kimba seems to remember his father. Newsflash, he never met the man. Or lion. Getting straight to the point here, these scenes highlight the one final problem that I had with this show. Lack of consistency. Every episode seems to forget important elements that are supposed to be foundational to the show. And it's frustrating because it's almost insulting in that the creators may very well think the audience doesn't remember these moments. So yeah, from bland leads to inconsistent storytelling, this anime was a hot mess. But that doesn't mean that it wasn't an interesting hot mess. In comparing Kimba the White Lion to Astro Boy, you can tell there were a lot of advances done between the short 2 years both shows came out. Though many people will point out that Kimba is in color, the animation is actually a lot smoother too. The fight scenes in particular, when they do happen, are also much better animated. This was definitely a big advantage over Astro Boy. In Astro Boy, the fight scenes oftentimes were very stiff, sometimes only being animated with just still images. But here, it's a lot more fluid. It can be a little scatterbrained sometimes as the fights quite literally go all over the place, but they're still visually interesting to watch and much better animated. And another element to the show that I don't think a lot of people who have seen it talk about all that much is that sometimes it went to some pretty dark places. They touch on death and survival pretty frequently throughout the series. In fact, going back to the 1st episode, the series opens with Caesar dying. And as we find out later, his pelt is hung up in a pretty unsettling way by the game warden that wanted him dead. And of course it doesn't help either when some of Kimba's friends decide to steal said pelt and use it to talk to Kimba. I really don't want to think about what a person will— Oh my gosh! No, stop! Another equally uncomfortable moment involves Claw asking a young female cub to marry him so he can officially become king. And to make it worse, when she says no, Claw and the hyenas chase her down. bet you right now Bill Cosby and Harvey Weinstein are in their prison cells right now applauding this guy. And it's not particularly comfortable to even mention. Yeah, I never expected this show to actually present something of adult situations, and it was kind of nice that they tried to do it. Though note the word try. Once again, the plot tends to be inconsistent with itself, so it's shaky at best. It almost reminds me of the nostalgia critic's thoughts on the live-action Jungle Book. It tried to combine elements of something for kids with the elements of something for adults, but not knowing what to emphasize. Kimba the White Lion is a very light example of this, as it knows its place as a kids show, plus both elements tend to go to extremes sometimes. Still, all problems considered with the show, it was neat to see the show actually try to be something that adults can enjoy, which was something that I really wish Astro Boy had done. So nearing the end of this review, Kimba the White Lion... Okay, you know what? I am sick and tired of having to hear this. I have heard this song more than enough times because it keeps playing every time I mention the name Kimba the White Lion. Why in the world does this keep playing? Seriously, why does it... Wait a minute. Wait a minute. No, it can't be. No. Are you serious? This can't be what, it can't be, no, I can't fathom this, no. That's not what this is about, is it? I can't avoid talking about this topic, can I? There's no possible way. If I'm doing a Kimba the White Lion review, I can't possibly avoid this. Well, apparently I can't talk my way out of this, so let's get this over with. Go ahead, keep going with the music here. You've already set the mood and the tone here. Let's just keep going with it. I'll talk about it. One big controversy surrounding Kimba the White Lion that many otakus talk about is that the famed Disney movie The Lion King is a direct ripoff of the show because it contains many elements from it. And in watching Kimba for myself, I can definitely see why fans have complained about it. I mean, the main characters have similar names, they're both lion cub princes, have a pair of animal friends, a baboon for an advisor, and a villain with a very similar character design and hyenas for henchmen. Plus add the fact that the protagonist has to return to his homeland to claim some kind of birthright. Yeah, those are kind of hard to ignore whether or not you like The Lion King. But to give the film some credit here, I think The Lion King rips off Hamlet more than Kimba the White Lion. Simba was actually a well-fleshed out character. Scar was far more interesting of a villain than Claw was, and Simba didn't have repeated run-ins with him. So, sorry for going against the mass majority here, but I really do think this is an unfortunate coincidence. Now, I'm not saying that Disney didn't take some ideas from Kimba the White Lion, but as I've clearly stated in this review, both have somewhat different stories. Though I'd probably argue The Lion King had the better one. But once again, it's not hard to see why this has caused some stir in the Pride Lands. So nearing the real end of the review here, Kimba the White Lion is no Astro Boy. Time cannot excuse the obvious flaws in its plot. But many otakus fondly remember this anime, and not for the controversy that it brings up. That being said, I still think it's worth a watch. Just don't mention The Lion King at all. Trust me. And so that ends today's review and the last review for Flashback February 2019. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and be sure to stay tuned for March because I'll be doing some reviews that I've been super excited about. Yay! But yeah, just wait till March till that happens. Till next time, bye!